This is the flag of Romania. Now, the Romanian flag is vexillologically famous for not being the Belgian flag, also not being the French flag, and certainly not being the flag of Chad, which looks incredibly similar and which actually caused the Chadian government to raise concerns at the international level that Romania should perhaps change its flag. Now, I'm not going to be commenting on any modern politics, only history, of course. But what may be more pertinent is to look at the connection between the Romanian flag and the flag of its smaller northern neighbour, Moldova, because they have an interesting connection. So where does the Romanian flag come from, and what are some of these connections with other flags? Now, as with many European, seemingly boring tricolour flags, they actually have a very interesting history in the Middle Ages with heraldry and the coats of arms of various parts of what would become these modern nation states. In the case of Romania, the three main parts that have gone into the modern country are Moldavia, Wallachia, and Transylvania. In the case of Moldavia, we know that a lot of its origin story, and indeed the origin of its coat of arms, come from a figure called Dragoș Vodă, a man who was said to have come from the region of Maramureș following an aurochs, a big bison which he was hunting, that then led him to the region of Moldavia. Now, the aurochs is an old species of huge cattle. The etymology comes from aur, which is a Celtic form, but it's found more frequently in the Germanic ur, which in German and Dutch signifies something from a very long time ago, prehistoric, and the word ox, so together it's like a prehistoric ox. These were huge cattle that used to be found throughout Europe, and recently subfossil DNA has suggested that there were still aurochs living in this region of Moldavia into the 16th and even the 17th century, so that's all rather interesting. In any case, this foundation myth led to the aurochs head, particularly with a crescent moon and a star and a flower, becoming the main symbol of Moldavia, as we see here from this monastery at Putna. And still today, we find that historically this region is associated with this rather cool symbol, I think you'll agree. We see it appearing in 1457 on the coat of arms of Stefan cel Mare, known in English as Stephen the Great, who on his seal has this very same symbol, as well as a legend in Church Slavonic, an old Slavonic language. By 1593, it's become an important symbol of this region of Moldavia, where we find it on the seal of Mihai Viteazul, known as Michael the Great, one of the main foundational kings in Romanian history, where we see both the aurochs head, but also another symbol that will be important to Romanian and Moldavian vexillology, which is the eagle with the cross in its beak. Now, going back to the colours that we find on both flags, red, yellow and blue, we can already see in 1447 on the coat of arms of Vladislav II of Wallachia that we find these colours in combination with a stripe design, a crescent moon and what appears to be some form of star too. Now, based solely on this design and the fact that it's one of his predecessors, if we look back to 1377, we find on the coat of arms of Vladislav I of Wallachia a rather similar design, although this one isn't coloured. However, we might infer that it's quite likely that the colours would have been the same, as we see on the somewhat later design from his successor. So possibly we can already date these colours being important to the region of Wallachia in the 14th century. Now, to jump forward and to the third part of today's Romania, Transylvania, we have to enter into quite a controversial topic, which has been certainly politicized, as have all elements of Transylvania's history. So to try and keep out of that and to go with what we know concretely, in 1765 Transylvania was reorganized and recognized as a part of the Habsburgs under their ruler Maria Theresa. Now, she then set about giving a coat of arms to this part of her empire. This was a very diverse part of the empire. I mean, that's not really saying much considering she was ruling over what would become Austria-Hungary, but in this area there were many different ethnic groups, including Hungarians, Romanians, Jewish people, Saxons or Germans as they're invariably called, and many more. And the Saxons in particular called this area Siebenburgen, so the 7 fortified towns, the 7 castles, I suppose. And in the 16th century, we already find coat of arms that reference this, with these 7 red fortifications representing these different towns. And still today in this region, all the villages there, most of them will have a name in Romanian, a name in Hungarian, and a name in German as well. We also see at the top there what looks a little bit like a headless chicken. No offense, of course, to whoever did this artwork back in the day, but it is actually representing an eagle. So we again see an eagle being common to both the Wallachian area and indeed to this Transylvanian area already in the 16th century. Now, this is the design that was come up with by the heraldic advisors to Maria Theresa. And we see the 7, the Siebenburgen, at the bottom there, again these red fortifications, and we see some very Romanian looking colours. However, at the time it was thought that it was just this azure section which was meant for the Romanian segment of Transylvania's population. As we know that from the time, Romanian military units that were raised on an ethnic basis for the Habsburg armies were using blue banners and blue shields, particularly of the azure colour as it was noted, and this was also azure. So it's thought that at that point it was the azure colour that was really linked with the Romanians rather than the colour scheme of red, yellow and blue. Of course, we may find in that eagle a connection with what we'd already seen with some of these other coats of arms and seals in other parts of what would become Romania. Of course, the Habsburgs are famous for their eagle, but that's a double-headed eagle, and this one just has the one head. So possibly we have a wink there, although it's also possible we could be looking at origins from Poland, which was a big power, or had been a big power in that region, and is famous for its eagle, albeit a white eagle. So there's a lot of different pieces of symbolism that go into this Transylvanian coat of arms, and indeed into many of the coats of arms. Now, the first time we really find yellow, red and blue being used by Romanians to self-identify as Romanians, to claim these colours as Romanian, is from a revolt in 1821 against the ruling Ottoman Turks. Now, this revolt was crushed, but we do find a really cool flag. This is what you get when you have Orthodox revolutionaries. They just sort of put everything on there. They say, which symbols would you like on your flag? And they answer, yes. Now, of course, we may recognize some of the things we've been talking about. We can see there sort of centrally in the bottom this symbol of the eagle with the cross in its mouth and various important saints to the Romanian Orthodox Church. But let me point out here that the important thing for our video is to look at the color of the vestments of the saints, which are slightly faded, but they are all yellow, red, and blue. So we see this connection. And indeed, in 1848, when a series of revolutions were kicking off around Europe, this was also true in Wallachia, and here we again find these colors, but now explicitly they've got rid of the saints. They've now explicitly put these as a tricolour onto a flag. Note, though, that this was not in the same orientation as the modern Romanian flag, and instead we find it as a horizontal tricolour. A little bit later, though, when they created a short-lived government, they did do this in the model of the French flag. And that connection with France can also be seen in the words that are printed onto the flag, dreptate and frăție. These words meaning justice and fraternity. So it's quite likely that the orientation of the French flag may have influenced the design of the horizontal initially flag of the revolutionaries, because of course the French Revolution was a big model of inspiration for those rising up in 1848. However, this too was crushed by the Ottomans, and in 1859 the Ottomans reformed the area, bringing together Wallachia and Moldavia into a single unit, this being represented by a flag of that horizontal tricolour of red, yellow and blue. Now, this was increasingly only nominally under the control of the Ottomans as a vassal, and so the Romanians started really to act more independently. And so in 1866, they would write their own constitution without any input from the Ottomans, basically declaring themselves semi-independent. And it's very much the case that this constitution was based on the Belgian constitution at that time. And so it's possible that the Belgian constitution and the Belgian flag also influenced things in Romania, because a year later, in March of 1867, it was stipulated that the flag that had been given to them by the Ottomans for that united Wallachia and Moldavia, the horizontal tricolour, should instead become a vertical tricolour. And now we see for the first time this flag officially being used for a separate state, a Romanian state, that we can recognize in the modern Romanian flag. Now, Romania hasn't had an easy ride as a country since then. Particularly in the Second World War, there were some elements of Romanian society, including the royal family, who were aligned with the Allies, and other elements of Romanian society, notably its burgeoning fascist movement, who very much wished to align with the Axis. In the end, they got both, but in sort of the worst combination possible, and following the Second World War, Romania became a communist state. A bit of a maverick in the Eastern Bloc states, but a communist state nonetheless, with all the oppression that brought. It's also true that the communists changed the flag that had just been a simple tricolour. They added in an emblem of the Socialist Republic of Romania in the centre there. Now, when protests against the government began in earnest in 1989, one of the most memorable things that could be seen on the streets of Bucharest, as well as other places, was the ripping out of that central communist emblem, essentially returning the Romanian flag to what it had been before the communists took over. And when Romania was finally able to ditch its communist leader Ceausescu and to become a democratic country once again, albeit with many bumps in the road, they once again adopted the flag from 1867. However, in 1991, the Socialist Republic of Moldova, which was largely contiguous but not entirely with the former region of Moldavia, which is today split between both Romania and Moldova, confusing I know, they declared their own independence. And following the fall of communism there as well, they remained independent from Romania and adopted their own flag. Now, this is a similar flag, except of course its aspect ratio is different, and in the center of the tricolour we get this really cool, if I may say, coat of arms. We see again the eagle with the cross in its beak, that very old symbol that's been found in that region for a long time. And of course, like its namesake Moldavia, Moldova also has the symbol of the aurochs head, done really nicely actually with the colours and retaining that older horizontal tricolour that you can also see with the red, the gold and the blue. So I really like the Moldovan flag. I think it may take the cake for me. Yeah, I know I can't really say much as a Dutchman with a tricolour flag, but I think having that coat of arms in there is just a really cool one. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching. I hope this has been somewhat interesting and not too rambling. I'm a little late with the video today, as many things going on, but I still wanted to produce something, and it's been a while since I did some vexillology, as it's called, and a while since I looked at any flags. So I thought that today could be interesting to look at the Romanian flag and the Moldovan flag and where it came from. As before researching this, I wasn't too sure. I knew the two were very similar, but not exactly what the connection there was. So thank you all very much for watching. Mulțumesc frumos, and I will see you in the next one.